You're listening to another great podcast in the MyMac Podcasting Network.
TechFan podcast number 504. I'm Stuffed Up Tim, and that's David Cohen over there. Hello, David.
Hello. Hello.
I'm all stuffy today.
Yeah.
I hate being stuffy.
Doesn't everybody?
Well, we've had an unseasonably warm past few weeks.
Well, you say unseasonably. I think this is the new normal now.
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder.
Yeah.
Very strong El Nino pushed a thing, which did a thing. And, of course, we were in almost 70 degrees a few times in the last week.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. It's been...
That was February. We were in the almost at the 70s.
No.
Are you kidding me?
We turn the central heating off in the house here, and then 2 days later we turn it back on again because it got cold again.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the same thing. It is generally very, very mild and a lot wetter than normal for February here.
Someone said, had a customer, they go, oh, isn't this great? I said, no, this is not at all what we want. And she goes, what do you mean?
Why?
It's gorgeous out here. I said, right, we're supposed to have a lot of snow and ice and that sort of thing so we can replenish what's, in the lakes and the rivers.
Yeah.
We are supposed to have seasons change. We're not supposed to be walking around in shorts in February for 3 days.
She'll be complaining in June, going, I can't get my bottled water.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so the weather's been kind of crazy. I woke up coming down the stairs this morning. There's a little trickle of snow on the grass, which will be gone, in short order. But, I got to see my new vehicle in the parking lot as I was walking down or in the driveway as I was walking down the steps.
Very good. And what vehicle would that be?
Well, for those who listened to the last show, my beloved Sequoia, Rusted Soul, had its frame rust through. And after David and I did that show, the next trip it took was me driving to the dealership where it's still parked out back. I'm waiting for a lien release letter so I can legally sell it. I had it. I just don't know what I did with it, so I had to request a new one. Because I don't know how this works in where you're at. Here we get a title. Now it's going electronic here in Michigan, but you get a paper title. You've seen movies where they're talking about pink slips. In Michigan, it would be a green slip. It's a green title. And if there is a loan on it, that's called having a lien on the vehicle, and it is stamped on the title. So you either have to have them sign off on it, or you have to have what's called a lien release, so you can legally sell that vehicle. And that's where I'm at.
We don't have that. If you've got the title, you can sell it, but obviously and there are various rules about how you transfer the title to a new owner, but it doesn't have any information on it about the financial condition of the vehicle. So you would normally have to say, obviously if you trade it into a dealer, then they can see that it's under finance. And they will settle the finance for you as part of the trading. Sometimes that can be really kind of annoying because I've had it in the past where I've traded a vehicle to somebody and they have a dealer and they have and we've done the deal and I've paid them deposits and what have you, and then I get another debit from my account from the finance company for another payment. And I call them up and they go, well, what's going on? Oh, yeah, we haven't done it. We haven't settled the finance yet, but we will do in the next few days. And then 10, 15 days after that, the finance company will refund you the overpayment. Yep. That's just like, yeah, but I sold you the car 3 weeks ago, And they're doing it for their own cash flow reasons.
No, not necessarily. Usually it's just laziness to be fair.
Whatever it is, it's really annoying because obviously...
or they're really busy, they're short-staffed, the people that do the paperwork in the back. They're overwhelmed, and it just takes time. But they should tell you that ahead of time.
Well, exactly, yeah. And so now anytime I do that, I actually go, and when will the finance be paid off? Can you give me the date you will be paying the finance off? And I kind of hold them to it. And then I check, and if it's not been paid off, then I call them up and say, you need to get this done now, Oh, well, yes, it was the same thing here. Such as I've been on holiday.
Yep.
It's like, yeah. So everybody who does finance transactions in your dealership, if there's only one person who does that and they go on holiday, you just don't do any. Is that right?
Pretty much. Yeah. Both dealerships I've worked at so far, that's exactly what happens. If the person who does the titling is off, nothing gets done.
Yeah.
But that's why dealerships get what's called a 10-day payoff, because they're going to pay it off within 10 days.
Well, we're not meant to have that here. They're meant to settle it straight away.
Anyways,
yes. So
I got a brand new 2024 Toyota RAV4 hybrid. Mm-hmm. So, yep, I went the hybrid route.
When you told me this,
sitting right there, but those are
you don't like Teslas.
No.
When you talked about the cars, I was pretty sure you were going to go for that Toyota Crown sedan.
Well, here's the thing. I took both for a test. Look, I've driven both of them multiple times. I mean, I sell them, right? So I get back a little bit of time there at work. I don't have any customers. It's a Monday, so, you're either slammed or you're not busy at all. And we weren't very busy. So we had, basically there was two of them I was going to get, and it came down to those two. I already knew pretty much everything about the RAV4 hybrid. Because I sell that probably more than anything else.
Yeah.
But when I drive them, I don't think about driving it for me. I think about, I'm just moving it from this place to this place so the customer can get in and drive it.
Yeah.
And, of course, I know all about the tech and everything because I got to teach people how to use all that stuff. But I haven't driven the Crown a whole lot. It's brand new. I think I've sold 2 of them, maybe 3. I can't remember. So, I wasn't as up to date. I know all the technology. It's the same as in the RAV4, but this is more posh.
Yeah.
So, I took both for a test drive, and I went on a route that would highlight comfort, getting up to speed, crappy road, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I drove the Crown first, and it was really nice. Then I drove the RAV4. Now, with my discount, excuse me, sinuses, or allergies, I should say. With my discount, the price difference was about $6,000. So not huge. The RAV4 drove almost as nice, I thought, as the Crown.
Yeah.
Now, did it have all of the bells and whistles that Crown did, like color heads-up display and all that stuff? No. It didn't. It had heated seats, but it doesn't have heated and cooled seats.
Right.
But for another $6,000, I just didn't see the value.
Yeah.
I was like, and plus I like the way that the RAV4 sits up higher.
Well, yeah, I was going to say the RAV's more of a practical car than a Crown sedan.
And Julie, I know, likes the small SUVs more than she likes passenger cars. And here's the thing: they both got 40 miles to the gallon, so take that out of the equation. So I went with the RAV4. It was just, I think it was a better choice. And 4 days later, we get tornado warnings, and I get hail damage on my car. I'm sound asleep.
Yeah.
Julie wakes me up almost midnight and says, Tim, we got to go in the basement. Which, if you grew up here, that means tornado.
Yeah.
And as soon as I kind of groggily look around and look at the clock, I can hear the tornado sirens actually blaring in the background.
Yep.
So we went and sat in the basement, and we have, excuse me, a metal roof on our house. Mm-hmm. Usually you don't hear anything with a metal roof. You would think they would be loud or something. It's not. But when big hail pieces start hitting it, you hear that. And that's when I remembered that the car's sitting in the driveway. Julie drove it the next day, and I said, did you see any damage? She was like, no, it looks fine. Oh, thank goodness. Then I go get in the vehicle, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, what are you talking about? It looks fine. It looks like a golf ball. So that's going to get fixed, of course. Insurance is going to take care of it.
When she said it looked fine to her, which means she didn't look at all.
I mean, she got in it, didn't see anything obvious, and was like, yeah, it's fine. I think she was thinking, oh, probably a broken windshield or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I would have welcomed, to be honest. But
easy to fix.
Easy.
Yeah.
Would have been fixed the next day.
Yeah.
So here we are. Now, with the Sequoia, even driving just... Because I live literally 3 miles from my work. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not a straight shot. I got to go through downtown or take this little highway, but you get off on the very first exit, which is like a quarter mile down the road. But there's no direct shot from here to there. I was still filling... And then, you know, you go grocery shopping, you do this, that, and the other. I was filling up the Sequoia on average twice a week.
Right.
And it was it's a 20-gallon fuel tank, a little bit more than 20 gallons. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot of money in gas.
Yep.
On average, I'm filling up the RAV4 Hybrid once every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not as big a tank either.
No, it's much smaller. I think it's a 14-gallon.
Yeah. Yep.
So this would be nice to take to New York this summer because we're doing... I don't know if I told you that. We're doing New York again.
Oh, right. No, you didn't.
Well, Cole, you know, he... you saw pictures and stuff.
Yeah.
He had a great time.
Mm-hmm.
Felix is now pretty much officially moved out of the house. He hasn't slept under our roof in months now. And he's working and he's buying a car or a house and all this stuff. So he can't go to New York this time. So we're taking one of Cole's cousin, a nephew, named Max. And Max has never been there. Same age as Cole, 16.
Mm-hmm. It's very, very interesting as they get older. So Alexander is in his final year at university. He's going on a holiday with some of his friends, which is the first time he'll have done something like that in a few months' time. And, he's looking for work and all of that sort of thing now. Hopefully we'll pass his driving test at the end of this month. And he's got a car in order, so it's all change.
Yeah. Yeah, we both got one more at home after that, don't we? Yeah,
and, Leanne and I are now starting to think about what we're going to do when Charlotte moves away. And, I think we've got a 3-story house at the moment. And as you know, Leanne has a really bad spine.
Yeah.
So
going up and down the stairs is probably a joy for her.
She when she does that journey once towards the end of the evening, then she's not coming down again.
So you're looking at downsizing.
Well, we're looking at maybe buying, I don't know what they call them in the States. Here we call them a bungalow, which means a house all on the same floor with no upstairs.
It depends on the style, if it's a bungalow here or not. There's also ranches here. Now, when you hear ranch, you're probably thinking like a Texas ranch, but a ranch just means it's spread out on one floor.
Yeah. So we don't have the space for those, so it will be a bungalow here. So I think we might be looking at moving once in a few years' time, but... housing market's terrible at the moment.
Well, I think it is everywhere. That's why, the big announcement that we haven't told anybody is that David and I are going to start building hobbit holes worldwide. We think this is the way to go. They're easy to keep cool and warm. Natural light. Also, who needs natural light? I mean,
and if you build a hobbit hole garage, then you don't need to worry about hail damage.
That's right. Yeah, dirt is very good at absorbing golf ball sized chunks of ice. So that's going to be, the obviously the whole process of recording this podcast is going to be it's going to be called TechFan Hobbit Hole. That's what it's.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and all the technology you need for living underground. Yeah, so it'd be a lot more focus on water pumps and things.
Dirt
like
Fan is what I think we might change the name to.
Hey, I think some people might call it that already.
Well, so I'm looking at the notes. You put some notes in here, David. The first one it says, question for Tim. Do you like Apple more or less than you used to? What's that from?
So, obviously, Apple is in the news a lot at the moment. And the latest... I would call it a bit of a misstep this week, is they launched their compliance with these European regulations, the Digital Marketing Act, which compels them to set up facilities to allow them to have allow third-party app stores in Europe. Not here where I live, because we're not in Europe anymore, thanks Brexit, but over on the continent, yes. And I think a lot of people were surprised when Apple launched their plans because basically they said they've constructed something that allows people to set up third-party app stores, but still ensures that Apple gets their 30%, which I think everyone was kind of thinking, oh, they'll just have to let that go. And that's not what the Digital Marketing Act is about. It's about allowing competition between app stores. It's not necessarily about stopping Apple from deriving revenue from those. So, and I think it surprised a lot of people. But then, and there's been quite a lot of commentary saying, oh, this is just Apple being Apple, complying with the letter of the law, but not the spirit, and being mean-spirited about it and everything like that.
Hey, David, keep going for a minute. I have to go for 1 second.
Okay, so you can... I guess that depends on your particular attitude towards Apple, whether you think that's right or not. But anyway, this is what they did, and I think a lot of people were expecting to see whether... the way it works in Europe is much like submitting an app to the app stores. You do all the work up front against guidelines that are deliberately made to be not straightforward and could be interpreted different ways, and then you submit your plan and then you wait to see whether it gets accepted or rejected. So it's interesting to see Apple have to go through that process. But anyway, they've put this stuff through. But what happened in the last week was that Epic, who famously, about 4 years ago, broke the terms of the App Store in order to precipitate a lawsuit between themselves and Apple, which they mostly lost. I think there was one term which was about Apple not letting people refer you to other places to pay for stuff inside your apps. I think Apple's been made to do that. But Epic mostly lost. And they lost on the basis that they'd signed an agreement with Apple and then threw it in the bin. So Epic this last couple of weeks said, well, we're gonna do our own app store in Europe, and then Apple closed their developer account.
Who didn't see
European,
that
yeah. Well, not only did they close their developer account, but they then, and obviously, as you imagine, Epic. Were not very happy about this, and Tim Sweeney, the head of Epic, kind of railed against it online, and then Phil Schiller weighed in and sent what was a very petty and spiteful letter saying, well, you guys have got history of not complying with our rules, so why would we expect you to comply with them this time? So that's why we've closed your account. And it really did come across as all the worst things that people who don't like Apple say about them, saying they are vindictive and spiteful and only interested in complying with the letter of the law and not the spirit. It kind of made that just come across as all true, because that's pretty much what they said. They said, well, we don't trust you and you've screwed us over before, so screw you now. They rode back from that very quickly, because I think somebody from Europe contacted them and said, you know what? We're considering your applications at the moment for the DMA, but you absolutely can't arbitrarily decide that you don't trust one person and therefore they can't operate under these rules. So they had to quite embarrassingly roll that back. And we've talked a lot on this podcast, you and I, over many years about some of the terrible things we think Apple does that are user hostile or developer hostile or just not a good look. And I wanted to ask you, as somebody who is a long-term Apple fan, longer than me certainly, because obviously you started with a magazine and then a podcast, which was My Mac. It was about Apple and the Macintosh. How do you feel about Apple nowadays?
I don't.
You don't feel about them at all?
No.
Because I think there are, and really the thrust of my question is, does their behaviour kind of bother people enough that actually at some point people might stop using their products on a point of principle?
No.
No?
No.
I mean, I think at the moment, outside the tech press, most people don't really understand or care about any of these sorts of things.
Well, because what they do, when we think of the shitty things that they do, is all tech-related. When it comes to social issues, generally they're falling on to the left side of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The environmental.
And that's generally socially acceptable for whoever you ask. They're usually pretty quiet about stuff, though. They don't make big public announcements, to piss people off. It's not like they have the My Pillow guy up there in charge or something.
I think the problem is, I would agree with that 5 years ago. I think nowadays, actually, they make more hay out of those things they do. They're very upfront in their pronouncements in keynotes and stuff about their environmental credentials and the things they're trying to do.
They've always been that way.
And that, I think...
they've always been a left-leaning company. Always.
Yeah, but also the other thing is the privacy angle, which is now is a fundamental part of their overall marketing. Is that Apple, unlike the rest of the industry, is a privacy protecting company. That's not just like, oh well, we're left leaning. That is actually trying to be a market differentiator.
Yeah, but see, that's still a tech issue.
It is, but I think it's becoming increasingly important to some people. The thrust of my argument here is that whatever the public perception of Apple is, and let's face it, many people in both our countries don't know who the current head of the government is, let alone
people
care about the ins and outs of Apple. Right? There are plenty of people who can't name the Prime Minister in the UK, even though you and I would find that surprising.
No.
So, well, anyway, expecting those people to grasp some of these technical issues and what have you is one thing, but I think the difficulty that Apple, I think, is increasingly getting itself into is that their attitude towards regulation and the way that politicians see them as part of, we all know that in America, big tech has been on the Biden administration's hit list ever since he came to the presidency.
Yeah, he hasn't done anything about it, but yeah,
he hasn't done very much. He's been pretty ineffective because he's left it to the FTC, who've kind of screwed it up. But I
think it was a talking point for Biden. I don't think his administration actually has real concrete policies to fight big tech. I don't think they do.
I think it's less of a talking point, more of a potential legislative issue in Congress and the Senate.
No, they keep making noise, but they're not doing anything either. Well,
the thing is, they can make noise until they decide to do something. Now, your attitude to that can be to play along or play hardball. Apple's attitude is to play hardball, and as I explained in the intro, they've been playing hardball in the EU and have been slapped down for it pretty hard. And especially in the EU, they are not a local company, so they've got it against them already. Yeah, and the EU traditionally does, as it has done with the Digital Market Act, when it talks about these things and then it does something about them.
They do.
And Apple,
I think the EU is way more responsive to the needs of their constituents than either Britain or the US are.
Absolutely, I'd agree with that. Yeah. We are far too dominated by political lobbying in the UK and the US than
which means
the European
business.
Union is. Yeah.
Yeah, we're both very greedy
business
companies
lobbying.
For the people at top.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
So, with all of that, my question to you is that as somebody who likes Apple products, because like it or not, these sorts of attitudes are starting to bleed into the products now. The App Store guidelines definitely bleed into what happens with the products. Some of the decisions that Apple's made with their products over the last 10 years have been, exhibit this same screw you attitude. Look at the business with the keyboards and the Macs and stuff like that. My question is are you still as comfortable using Apple products as you always were, or do you just not care about these things?
There's a couple different answers in there. As a company, I don't care about Apple at all.
Yeah.
I don't care who's in charge. I don't care. They're one of the biggest companies in the world. I don't think you're supposed to like the giant corporations. I mean, we're Gen X, right?
Yeah.
We have an inherent distrust of big business. We always have. It's how we grew up. Our parents, on the other hand, completely trusted the system, if you will. So I don't care about Apple as a corporation. Putting that aside, looking at their products, I still think, and this is why I still use their product, I still think that they make the best of breed. And what I mean by that is, if I want a new computer, I still won't consider a Windows PC. I'll go with a Mac. I think that it's more secure. I think it's more intuitive. I think it's more forgiving. Everything I want when it comes to apps is on the Mac. From a hardware perspective, I don't think there's any question that they're making the best machines out there. The new M3 MacBook Air, from what I'm reading, is just an almost perfect laptop. If I needed a new laptop right now, that's probably the one I would go with.
Yep.
I think that from the Mac side, they're hitting home runs left and right. You know, I think the Pro machine, if you will, the desktop, I still don't think there's a place for that. I don't think it's so much more powerful than a regular Mac Studio that it's worth the money.
Yeah, I actually saw some stats last week that say that surprisingly enough, the Mac Pro still outsells the iMac, and definitely outsells the Mac Studio and the Mac Mini.
Interesting.
I think it was about the same as the iMac, but it was more than double the sales of the Mac Studio and the Mac Mini, which really surprised me. But maybe that's just the Pro effect, that pros decide that they want. Yeah,
it's new, and they're all upgrading right now.
Yeah,
a year from now it won't be the case. Plus, the iMac hasn't had a significant refresh in years. I think with the iMac they need to look at a different form factor, something new and innovative. I mean, they've done it before, and they can do it again.
Yeah. But the iMac is weird because they keep going for thinner and thinner, which is exactly what you don't need to do in a desktop machine.
You don't care. Who cares how thin it is? Nobody.
It's sat in a desk,
Yes.
so, you know.
So, on the Mac side, I think they're hitting home runs. On the phone side, I think they're doing great. I've seen a lot of trying innovation on the Android stuff, Samsung and a few other companies, but I've seen the end results. And you know, I've got a couple guys at work that will never buy Apple products, and one of them has a phone that folds in half vertically. Another one has one that does so horizontally. They're both junk. They're both crap. When they first got them, they loved them, but I just hear nothing but complaints, and it's already time to get a new one, and they've had them for 8 months. Whereas people that have, it used to be, which iPhone do you have? You remember that whole thing? Oh, which one do you have?
Yeah.
Which one do you have? People don't care anymore. It's an iPhone.
Because they're all
the same.
You know, they're broadly the same. Certainly, the last 4 or 5 years,
they haven't changed.
Paper thin changes between them in terms of
and so it becomes less of
what they look like.
I can't tell you which iPhone I have right now. I think it's the 14, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I keep mixing up my 13 or 14.
Yeah, it's got to the point where it doesn't
really matter.
It doesn't matter anymore. That's how, and that's not a negative, by the way. That's a good thing, because they have reached that plateau where they are what they are, and you know what they're going to be. When there's a big announcement on a new iPhone, it's a yawn event, because it's going to be incremental changes, and it's still just going to work really well.
And if you buy a 3-4-year-old iPhone today, secondhand, it will do everything the latest one will do. Yeah, the pictures might be slightly less good, but not that, and that's the problem. Not so much that somebody with a casual eye will notice. The performance of the phone, if you're playing games on it and that sort of thing, and you know, not many people play
most of the
type games on the
software
iOS
that people are running on their phones
runs the same on all of them.
Well, it's because it's all made to the lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
None of that stuff is designed to take full advantage of the power of the phone. They're just not. And
on the iPad, it's the same again. In fact, even more so. I'm just Charlotte needs a new iPad. She's got my old 10.5-inch iPad Pro, which is now 7 years old, I think, something like that. So the battery's starting to fail. So she was constantly recharging it. So I'm going to replace it with the latest 10th gen iPad. I managed to get that on a deal because it's expensive.
Probably less than $350.
A bit more than that. She wanted she needed a 256 gig one. But the point is,
so less than 450.
But the point is that that is will probably run rings around the former Pro machine she had.
Oh, no question about it.
You know,
and
having said
if you're
that,
getting 5 to 7 years out of an iPad, geez.
Exactly, yeah. But having said that, while I know it's got that for longevity purposes, she's not going to notice any difference because to her it's just going to run the same software she's running on her old one.
It will make some difference in that it's going to be snappier launching apps and stuff like that. It's going to feel fresher.
But those aren't the sort of things that would having something that's a little bit more snappy. It's just like you with the Comfort and the Crown and the versus the RAV4 is for a lot of people would go, well, I'm not going to pay $400 for something that's just a little bit snappier than what I have, but runs the same software. The only reason I'm changing it is the battery. It's not the performance of the machine at all. And so you've got the same issue with the iPad, is that it doesn't, for most people, it doesn't really matter what iPad they have.
Yeah, they just have an iPad. Well, when people say,
just have an iPad.
Do you have a... Well, there's no tablet market. I just did a review on an Android. I think I told you about it weeks ago. I finally did my review, and I blew it up. I gave it 2 stars across the board. It's just garbage. There's no tablet market. It's iPad. Yeah. Or it's Kindle or Kindle Fire.
Yeah.
Those are the two
for the bottom end.
The only ones that matter, and none of them are changing significantly.
No, and nobody's going. Very few people are going out and buying any other Samsung or Android tablets.
No,
they're
no, because
you could and I can hear people going, oh, what about the Surface? What about the Microsoft Surface? But those are PCs.
That's a PC. Yeah,
it might be in the tablet form factor, but everybody who buys one of those uses it like a laptop. Mm-hmm. So
because that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what's left? The watch. Okay. I use an Apple Watch. I interact with my iPhone more than any other device, simply because I'm on the go, I'm at work, what have you.
Yeah.
Because I can use it for work when I'm scanning licenses and VIN numbers and stuff like that. But I'm also, on my lunch break watching TikTok videos. So it's an all-purpose device. I use my watch all the time as a clock, obviously. And I also use it all the time to start my Toyota because the Toyota app works in there. And then I use it to pay for stuff. It's my wallet.
Yep.
So unless I get a deep scratch that I just can't abide, I have no plans on replacing that anytime soon. And then the last thing that I think that a lot of people overlook when you're thinking about Apple, but I do think it's eminently important, is their headphones.
Yeah.
I have a pair. I don't usually use them, but it's kind of if I'm going to go for a walk by myself or I'm going to do some yard work, I don't think about it. I grab those, pop them in my ear, kills all the sound around me, and I listen to good, clear music.
Yeah. And something, obviously, that Apple capitalizes on, particularly with those last couple of products, is the fact that they're tightly bound into the iPhone ecosystem. They are iPhone accessories, and so
Beats fall into that, by the way.
Yeah, but they make sense to have. If you have an iPhone, it makes sense to buy other Apple accessories because they just work better together. You could go and buy a pair of Samsung Galaxy earbuds. They would have noise cancelling, everything like that. They would not integrate as well with the phone. You wouldn't show the battery charge. I
tell you what, might not. What you find out real quick that Find My comes in very, very handy for your headphones.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's a very good example.
Like Cole's Beats, by the way, I didn't realize this because it's made by Apple, and people seem to forget that. It also shows up in Find My.
Exactly.
Like he could not find his headphones the other day, and I pulled it up, and they were in school. I could see that they were at his school. So.
And the watch as well. Those obviously you can do payments if you have a Samsung Galaxy Watch, but you have to have their apps, rather than Apple's apps, and it's not integrated. You can't set them up once in your iPhone, have them appear automatically on a
Apple
Galaxy
Pay
Watch.
is really becoming the default everywhere. Now I'm at the point now where if someone doesn't have Apple Pay, I will probably leave. But all the main places I go to, they all have Apple Pay. Pay at the pump, I just swipe my wrist across it. I mean, But
And you mentioned apps.
Yeah.
You mentioned your Toyota app. I mean, that's another problem if you're not using an Apple Watch, is that very often the apps on the other things won't support accessory devices because it's
the
not a
Toyota
big
app
ecosystem.
but it's not as easy.
Yeah, and many more niche apps, for instance, would not.
I can tell you, with someone who deals with customers directly, helping them connect their phones and stuff, almost to a person, the people that own Android don't know anything about the phone. They don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
Those who have an iPhone do know how to use it. They know how to go to the App Store. They know what their password is. They know how to swipe between apps. The Android people don't, because they're just looking for the cheapest phone. They're not going to use it except for as a phone. Maybe a couple apps here and there. But that's the difference. So how do I feel about Apple? Getting back to your question.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. If somebody comes out with a better product than the iPhone, I have no problem, as long as I could still do the things I want to do.
Doesn't it concern you that maybe Apple is behaving in a way that ultimately will lead to the company failing to be as good as it is today, and that the products will decline because of decisions that are made inside Apple?
No, because I do believe in competition. I do believe that if Apple drops the ball with their dominance in mobile, there will be another company, and it's probably going to be a company we don't know anything about yet, that will step into the breach. They will be the new darlings. They will take over. Or at the very least, they will start to push Apple like, oh crap, we got to really do something here. I think most people underestimate Apple's ability to pivot and either get rid of something that's not working, like the Apple Car. After 10 years, they finally said, "This is stupid. We got to get out of this."
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure sticking $10 billion into a product which nobody had faith in, including inside Apple, is a good example of their ability to pivot. But there you go.
But they did pivot.
Well, they did eventually, but I think it was more the market changed out from under them rather than.
I agree with that, but that's still,
them deciding it was.
Yeah, but how many companies don't pivot when the market changes? They think it's going to come back, and it kills them, it dooms them.
I guess so. Yeah.
So
and certainly, they are continuing to try to innovate. Whether you think it's a good product or not, the Vision OS, the spatial computing idea they're trying to deliver is something new.
I watched Linus's Tech Tips thing on it.
Yeah.
And I agreed with everything he said, except I haven't used one myself. But that, there again, is a product that I have no intention of buying. I can go to the Apple Store, try one on, get it fitted, and order one right then. No problem. I can afford it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't fit in with what I'm doing with their products. I've already got a big monitor. What do I need to sit on the couch for and do the same thing?
Now that thing's out there, it needs to basically stew for a while and people figure out what it's for.
I'm waiting for third gen, where it's going to cost
Apple
$15.99.
Apple will then chase whatever it's going for and then refine the product towards that.
I also think Apple is using the first gen buyers, and to a lesser degree probably the second gen buyers, because they're already working on the third gen at this point.
Yeah.
To see what people are using it for. What are they trying to get out of it? And that's
it's like a big base test.
Yeah. That's going to determine where they take this product in the future. Apple is very good at that.
Yeah.
For all of their faults, and I'm never going to defend Apple when it comes to what their faults are. They're a giant corporation. They're going to have faults. You're not supposed to like them. I still think, as a whole, they generally make the right decisions for the consumer. I think that their leadership generally and genuinely want to do the right thing from a society standpoint. And I don't think that's true with a lot of companies. I don't think Apple is just chasing the dollars, because if they were just chasing the dollars, they wouldn't have come out with the Vision Pro.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have sunk $10 billion into a product. And by the way, we're guessing it's $10 billion because Apple's never talked about that.
No. A lot of the analysis seems to indicate if it's not that, it's certainly multiple billions.
I'm sure.
Let's face it, you can't do anything with thousands of people over 10 years and not spend a lot of money.
Right, but I think that also is their strength, that they will look at getting into either completely new markets or vertical markets that, they think that they could do a good job in.
Well, I think, let's face it, in a different dimension, then the Vision OS could have been the one that they spent 10 years on and then dumped, and the car could have been the one where they launched the product.
Absolutely.
They're two sides of exactly the same coin, and let's not overplay the thing. They are sat on an absolute cash mountain, so they can perfectly afford to spend time and billions of dollars trying to find new market opportunities.
And people say, well, they wasted $10 billion. No, people were paid. This is people's jobs. Good for them.
Yeah, the point is, sometimes if you don't do the research and the testing, you can't find out whether there's anything there that's worth doing or not.
And we don't know what technologies were developed as part of the Apple car that has made its way already into existing products or new products we don't know anything about.
I mean, and we'll probably never know, to be honest. No. But the point is it is their money to spend as they see fit.
Yeah.
And it is encouraging that they are continue to work on the Moonship stuff rather than, let's face it, I mean, they're making so much money off the iPhone. They could have scaled back the Mac. They could have dropped out of the iPad because it's a slower market, and they could have focused purely on the phones. And then what will happen is when somebody does come along to compete with the iPhone, then Apple would fade away because they wouldn't have anything else. But what they are continuing to do is diversify their product line. I think my only answer to the question is how do I feel about Apple now, is I'd agree with you on all the products and all the development, everything like that. I think they have a blind spot in the company, which is they are, I'm not one of these people who think they don't deserve 30% of every transaction that goes through the iPhone, because I think there is something to the fact that, it's a symbiotic relationship between apps and the iPhone. The iPhone would not be successful without the apps. The apps could not be successful without the iPhone platform. And I think that Apple is, the way they structured the App Store in terms of the protections, the ease of transactions, the surety you get when you buy apps that, even if you are ripped off, you can get your money back, and that sort of thing is important and is worth a value that means that Apple has a right to take some money. And also they have continued to develop the platform in a developer and app friendly way.
And it's best of breed. It's not.
Yeah.
It is the best when it comes to a mobile experience of purchasing and protections. It is the best. Now, some people don't like the protectionism and they don't like the walled garden, but that's exactly what I do like about it.
Yeah, so I don't have a problem with that, and I don't have a problem with the money. I think the problem I have with it is that Apple thinks that they set it at 30%, and let's face it, they plucked that number out the air back at the beginning. And I think the blind spot is they don't recognise that now they are one of the biggest companies on the planet. Yeah, they need to, even if it's not serious, but have the appearance of saying, well, maybe we should revisit that, or maybe we should restructure it. And instead they have this very, very bullish attitude, which is like, no, we deserve it. You guys can F off if you don't like it, which I think is just a really poor look and flies in the face of their nicey, we're here for everybody.
But I think this is only an issue for people that follow tech, which is a very small number compared to what it used to be.
Yeah, I know, but all of these issues always start with people who only follow the companies closely. The problem is that you either flex with the issue and kind of respond to it, or you turn into a hard ass, right? And the more it becomes known, the worse you look, right? And that's the problem I think that Apple is inadvertently walking into. They are basically, it's look at the business in, when people go to war with each other. Yeah, when they go to war, look at Gaza. When Israel first started that, people went, well, you know what? They've just had 1,700 people murdered. They've got a right to fight back. Now they're continuing to be very, very hard-arsed about what they're doing there, and people are going, oh, well, maybe they're overdoing this now. Maybe they should draw back. Maybe they shouldn't be so belligerent. I think that's the, on a micro scale, is very much what Apple is inadvertently walking into now.
But
and
Apple's
eventually,
always, see, here's the thing. I don't think Apple has changed. I think all the complaints
I agree with
that
you
have right now were obviously the issues were different, but the attitude and the stubbornness and it's our way or the highway, right or wrong, that has always been Apple since I started following them in '94.
I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you, and I think that is the problem: is that you can get away with that when you're the underdog, and you can get away with that when you're coming up with transformative technologies and transformative services.
I know where you're going with this, and I think you're wrong. I think it's harder to get away
iTunes Store
with
changed the world, the iPod changed the world, the iPhone changed the world, and all of a sudden you're the biggest company on the planet, and then that is not a good look. Then I think you need to, even if you don't believe it, you need to at least play to it. If people were following it, I would agree
with you, but they're not.
But they will do eventually.
No, they won't.
They won't. They will.
No,
they will, because
like
eventually somebody will turn around and say, "I'm sorry, Apple, you've gone too far here," and they're going to drop the banhammer on them, and they're going to make that. We saw this in a small degree at Christmas with this business with the heart rate monitor in the watch, and Apple went absolutely to the wire to try and say, no, we're not going to take that functionality out. We disagree with the patent decision. We disagree. They'd lost everything. They'd lost all the lawsuits, and they were still hoping for some sort of Hail Mary from the Biden administration that would turn around and say, you don't have to, you don't have to get rid of that functionality. And what happened? They lost.
Yep.
And then they had to go and proactively disable that functionality in their watches. It's a key function, and it's not there anymore. Right? You know what? Apple could have settled that. They could have paid over the money, and they could have played it just for, even if they didn't agree, just played a little bit nicey. And instead, no, they took it right to the edge and then went over the edge. And now nobody gets heart rate monitoring in their watches anymore in the US. Mm-hmm. Everywhere else is fine. And to me, that's just a stupid situation when you have that much money and that much legal clout and everything when you lose, to not hold up your hands and say, hey, we lost. Let's cut a deal. And instead, no, they thought, oh, well, somebody else will save us. Somebody else will save us. That attitude, is not right for a company of Apple's size, because they have disadvantaged their customers over a pissing contest. And I think that's the problem. That's the only thing that bothers me about Apple of today, is that they will back themselves into a corner where, because they're so stubborn, their customers suffer as a result. This business with the Fortnite store, the Epic store in the EU, right? If they'd been allowed to get away with that, when they turn around and say, oh, well, we don't like Epic, so we're going to pull their developer account, that's a terrible thing to do. A terrible, terrible thing to do. And by the way, completely illegal. But that's the problem, is when you've got a company who are so stubborn that they're prepared to run the risk of doing things that are illegal, but rather than change their position, I think that's a worry. Not saying that it's going to bring them down or anything like that. I just say it's a worry. And ultimately, if it does people do become aware of it, then when people do go and try and buy their product, all of a sudden something on it doesn't work, and they go back to the store and they say, why? And say, oh, well, there's a legal decision over here that means that we can't offer that here in this country. There are going to be some people who can say, well, give me my money back. I'll go and buy a Samsung where everything works. I think that is the path that they are inadvertently starting to stumble onto, and I think they should have these guys who are paid millions of dollars who run these companies should have the awareness to turn around and say, actually, we need to change our approach here.
Yeah, that's not Apple's DNA, though, unfortunately.
I agree with you. It's not their DNA, but you know what? DNA drives evolution, and sometimes you've got to evolve.
And I think they have in some respects, but not enough. I agree with you there.
They've definitely got these blinkers, and
they've always had them.
They always have, but there may come a time when those blinkers. The problem is those blinkers, they kick you in the ass when you're a small company, right? As long as it doesn't shut the company down, then you can recover and you can change tack. Yeah, when they kick you in the ass when you're a massive company, yeah, the ramifications. We've seen how many big companies that were huge when you and I were growing up in tech aren't around anymore.
There's been a few.
Yeah, exactly.
There has been a few. So,
Yeah.
do I think Apple's in trouble? I don't.
No, I'm not saying. That wasn't the question.
No,
the question
I
was,
I
how do you
understand.
feel about
Yeah.
Apple? How do you
And I
feel
don't.
about Apple?
I don't. I don't feel
And-
anything
and
for them.
I'm, as anybody listening to the show know, I'm a pretty broad church technologist. I use Windows computers, I use Mac computers, I use iPads. I've even got one of those horrible Samsung folding phones that you were talking about before. I like all sorts of technology, and I'm not a fanboy that I will only ever buy the Apple stuff. And I'm not one of these people who turns around and say, "Well, I never touch a Windows computer." I use them all the time, and they have their pros and their cons, and
They're
like
better than they
anything
used
else.
to be. And
Oh yeah,
I will never
And-
say
and-
I will
and-
never
and-
use Windows. I own multiple Windows machines.
Yeah, and I think most of the good things that are in Windows and Windows laptops today have been inspired by Apple.
Oh,
Yeah,
no question about it.
I've got a Dell machine downstairs that I use for work that basically is a Windows clone of a MacBook Pro, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. And Windows today, Windows 11, is much closer to the Mac than it ever has been.
Oh, no question
and again,
about it.
Nothing wrong with that either.
No.
I think
Look, when the new employer, where I work now, 7-8 months ago, said, "Here's your new computer," I used it for a week, and then I handed it back. I said, "No thanks," and I brought my own MacBook Air in. It's an M1, I think. Pretty sure, yeah. I said, "No thanks." I handed it back to him, brought in a big monitor, my own mouse, my own keyboard, and I used this instead. Now, my old employer, that would have been a no-go. This one, they don't care.
Yeah, well, and nowadays, thanks in part to other things in technology like the cloud led Microsoft to shift its very dominant software platform for Office apps.
That is a company who we don't talk about here.
Yeah.
But I have to give credit to Microsoft's leadership now. They are so much better business people than Bill Gates and company.
Because they moved away from everything has to be centered on Windows.
They pivoted, which Microsoft never did before. They would not pivot for anything.
Well, until they had to, like the internet thing, they pivoted, and then they became an internet monopoly.
Yeah.
But yeah, they pivoted to saying, rather than keeping everything on the Windows platform, we're going to meet our customers where they are, which means we want all our software. And it's much more than Office nowadays. It's all of these other cloud services they have. We want all of our software to run on any device.
Yep.
And so all of a sudden you get Office on the iPad, you get Office on the Mac, which has much closer feature parity. You get all these cloud services, which means you don't even need to install apps nowadays to run Microsoft services.
Yeah,
Microsoft
is at a very impressive case study in not just business change, but cultural change.
Yeah.
And I think Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Twitter could learn a lot from Microsoft. Less than Apple. Let's get into a couple other topics. We're coming up on our hour mark, but I do want to talk about these still. Number one, I don't know if it was you or me. I think it was you. HP wants you to pay $36 a month to rent a printer that it monitors.
This is unbelievable. So
HP has always been shitty, by the way.
Yeah. So HP as a company is known has been increasingly
they've been around longer than Apple and Microsoft.
Yeah. But over the years they've got closer and closer to what you might call the razor blade model, which is that they sell you a printer very, very cheap and they make money on the ink. And because of that, they've used various tricks over the years to try and stop you from using third-party ink in your machine. And I've had an HP machine that I was forced myself not to update it to the latest version because I knew that if I did that, I would not be able to put a third-party toner cartridge in, which was a third of the price of HP's. And, toner and ink and all of these things, for all they like to say, oh, it'll gum your machine up, you won't get as good results, it's the same stuff. And this is like DRM on a Keurig machine or something like this. They want you to only buy from them, and they charge very expensive prices, and they leave you in a situation where, if you, going back to people not being technical, you inadvertently make the wrong choice. You go out and buy a set of toners or a set of inks from a store who says, well, this is compatible. You to put it in your machine doesn't work, because it goes, oh, I don't recognize these cartridges. To get away from this, what HP now want to do is they basically want to turn printing into a service. So they will sell you a printer and then charge you a monthly fee, and then they say, oh, and it's really easy.
Is this geared towards business or consumers?
Consumers.
Okay, so using the calculator app on my Mac here, if in 1 year I go with this plan, I will have spent $432 in 1 year.
Yeah.
And how much do we actually print nowadays? I would suggest that printing on a home printer is at a historical all-time low. I bet the average family doesn't print more than 100 things in a year.
Yeah.
I would put money on that. So I can do that, $432, or I can just go buy an inkjet printer from HP right now on Amazon for $50.
Yep. How
is this a business model that they're even?
No, and not only that, but the worst thing about that is the entry level plan is $7 a month for an MV printer, but that only lets you print 20 pages. The point about this is the printer's connected to the internet. You try and print that 21st page, and it's going to not let you do that, because it'll say you've used your pages up for the month.
Oh, no, it'll let you. It'll just say, hey, it's going to cost
and then it will charge you
to continue to print.
Yeah. So, but not only that, that also means that they're seeing everything you print.
Yep.
So,
I will confidently say this won't be a thing a year from now.
But it's so wrong-headed. It's so wrong-headed. So you're connected to the internet, and they see everything you print. So that means you're printing confidential documents. You're printing sexy pictures of your loved one. Yeah. How do you know that HP's just seeing you printing a page and is not actually sending that data up to HP? You don't. And we all know all of these companies, they start with a subscription plan, yeah, and then they realise they can make some extra scratch by selling information that they get from the subscription plan to advertisers. And they'll have it buried in the terms of service somewhere that they can do that without letting you know, without your strict and informed assertive consent. And before you know it, everything you're printing is
cached at HP servers.
It's cached at HP servers and then sold to advertisers, and you start getting adverts on Facebook related to the things you're printing.
Yeah. So, HP is kind of, I think, at this point in time in the tech world, and also ran.
Yeah.
They're only known for their printers. I mean, yes, they have laptops, but nobody's...
but the laptop is a different business. It's not actually the same company.
Oh, it's not
anymore? No, HP Enterprise that sells laptops is a different company from the people who sell the printers. And I've got to be honest, I think this is... We're talking about pursuing business plans that are anti-consumer and end up killing the company. I could see this killing HP printers off, because other companies don't do that.
No.
Epson does to a degree, but the other big alternative printer company now is Brother, and the reason Brother is so successful is because it doesn't pull any of this stuff.
Yeah, Canon
just just lets you print.
Yeah, I've got a Brother's laser printer that we've had for probably 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
And I've never changed the toner. No, I did one time. But we print almost nothing.
Yeah.
So
and it's interesting
for this. This is disgusting.
In the announcement of this, they boasted about how people would never need to own a printer again. Yeah, and I think that's like Cassandra. Right, because basically, yeah, that's right. Because I think anybody looking at if this was the printer market, most people would go, you know what, I've decided I'm not going to print anything anymore.
Yeah.
So they would never own a printer again from anyone, especially HP.
Well,
because they would just say, you know, I can live without printing.
You don't need to print hardly anything anymore. Every now and then you do, but it's few and far between. And who the hell is going to spend anywhere from $7 to $36 a month for the? It's dumb. Yeah, it's gonna if they stick to their guns on this one, and they get rid of the rest of the product line in support of this, they'll be out of business.
Yeah.
This one I've seen some videos on, and I went through it and didn't think about it. So there's a new terms of service update for Roku devices that when you launch, and if you've had a Roku device already and you've been using it lately, you've already seen this, and you probably didn't think anything about it either. It's basically saying that you can't sue them, that you have to go through arbitration.
Right.
And you cannot disagree with it and continue using the product.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is illegal.
Yeah.
That's 100% illegal.
Firstly, I'm really perplexed that the law in America allows this. To be honest, it's just like, you know, to put something in the contract that says you can't sue us, you have to use our dispute resolution service, which I'm sure is completely and utterly independent. I frankly, I think it's ridiculous that even that is legal.
It's not.
But
legal.
Yes,
I watched this lawyer who did a whole video on this thing from Roku. It's 100% illegal what they are doing.
So. But here's the American way, is that companies do things that are illegal and then wait to get sued over it.
Yeah, they do that in the UK too.
You know,
or they just put postmasters in prison forever. This will go away. They're going to get sued. It's going to be a class action lawsuit.
But again, you know how this is going to go.
Yeah.
They're going to go, we've listened to our customers,
of course,
and we realise we miscommunicated this and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of sad because actually Roku is one of the better of these services.
I got to be honest,
except for this.
Excuse me. I've got a Roku TV. We got 2 of them. I'm not as in love with them anymore. So what I've noticed about my Roku TV is it's getting less and less and less responsive, and I think they're doing that on purpose. I think what Roku is doing is they're intentionally slowing down my TV, because it used to be very snappy. Just going through the icons on the main screen was snappy. Now it's really, really slow. Clicking something is taking 4 times to launch as it used to. And I even unplugged it and plugged it back in and ran the updates. I think they're intentionally slowing down older equipment, so you're forced to buy something new. And since you're already in the Roku ecosystem, they figure you're going to buy another Roku, which, by the way, I'm not. This will be the last Roku device I buy.
Either that or these very the maybe it's conspiracy theory thinking, but the flip side of that might be that these very, very low powered devices, because they are absolutely built down to a cost, are now being asked to do much more than they used to, such as monitoring what you're doing and sending that back to the mothership. And that's what's slowing the devices down.
Either way, it's intentional and it's obvious, because it's a TV.
Yeah.
It shouldn't get slower over time.
No, exactly. And you know, unfortunately, Tim, this goes back to the argument I was making about Apple at the beginning of the show, which is you can have a company that has a great product and then they make business decisions over time that suddenly make it worse and worse and worse. And eventually you get to the point of saying, screw this, I'm going somewhere else. And I think this is what's happening to Roku. I think the market they're in is hugely competitive, and the money available from selling the data about your users to advertisers is far too tempting for them. And I think these changes to the terms of service and riding roughshod over user choices so that people can't opt out, it's all about allowing them to make sure that they've got a watertight way of getting that data to advertisers, because the money is just too big. And it's far more lucrative than the money from selling these poxy little TVs and plug-in boxes.
Yep,
that's a means to an end. And I think
you're probably right in this. I'm not a big conspiracy guy. I think that usually the most obvious answer is the answer, but in this case,
that is the most obvious answer.
That's the most obvious answer.
Yeah.
it's slow because it's doing more stuff, when the only thing else it could be doing is monitoring our input, what we're watching, when we're watching.
But not only that, why would you change terms of service to remove class action lawsuits and force people to
about
individual arbitration
against a TV? What the TV do? All of a sudden start blasting porn at you? I mean,
no, because the class action lawsuits will be around what they're doing with your data.
Exactly.
That's what they're worried about. And so by forcing everyone to individual arbitration, they make it far more difficult for people to get together and say there's a big problem here.
Yep.
And, sometimes if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck.
Yeah.
Lastly,
before, because we're going over here, and we're an hour ahead here in the States now. So that screwed me up today.
So
I knew there was
podcasting from the future.
Well, yes. I'm an hour ahead of you now than I was last time. Reddit sells training data to unnamed AI company ahead of its IPO. This was so egregious that David deleted his Reddit stuff.
When Reddit changed its terms of service last year and basically shut off its API. And the reason it shut off its API was because it didn't want third-party Reddit clients. And the reason it didn't want third-party Reddit clients is it wanted to be able to capture everyone's data and put ads in front of you. And they basically priced the API such they put all the third-party clients out of business. Caused a huge upset. And at that time, there were rumours that Reddit was looking to IPO, and they were also concerned. The dickhead head of CEO of Reddit at the time kept going on about, well, this is all our data, when all the users had created the data. And they said, no, it's our data. And it was perfectly clear that they were looking to sell the data as part of their IPO, to juice their IPO. Sure enough, that's what they've now announced that happened. And yes, I did last year. Not only did I delete my account, but before I deleted my account, I ran a script against the Reddit platform that basically forcibly deleted every post I'd ever... There's about 10,000 posts on there. Every post that I ever made on Reddit over 6 years, so that data was not available for training AI.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that's exactly what they're doing now. They're going to give the whole corpus of Reddit over to an AI company to train it, and they'll get paid for that. And look... That's I guess that is their right. It's their company. They can do what they want within the bounds of their service. But it's something I wanted no part of, and I think it's like we're talking about ROKU. It's a really terrible trend that's happening on the internet now, that people think, well, it's my data and I'm going to sell it for all these nefarious purposes without really understanding what the outcome of that might be.
I haven't deleted my Reddit account, but I don't post anything on Reddit.
Yeah.
I am a consumer. I'm not a contributor.
So I was a pretty avid contributor for a long time. So I'd put a lot of stuff on there. And frankly, I don't want that. That was put for the delight or not delight of the people I was talking to. I never put stuff on there with the expectation it would be resold to train AI. And frankly, I think Reddit is a terrible, terrible source for AI training, given some of the discussions that go on there, and some of the it's a social network. Social networks should not be used to train AI.
I know. Although it probably will make it more accurate. With that, we're going to wrap up this episode of TechFan. We'd love to get feedback from you guys. Seriously, we love the feedback. It's the show at techfanpodcast.com. You can find us on Twitter as well as Facebook, although, we're probably not going to interact much on Twitter. I'm not calling it X. Fuck Elon Musk. It's Twitter forever. Facebook, we're going to be more responsive there. I think it's the less of the evils at this point, which is shocking to say.
It's really weird.
It's really weird to say that, but I kind of agree with that now. We really do hope you're listening to our other show, Geeks Pub. We have started season 2 of our bracket, and it's a much more difficult bracket than we did on the season 1 because we've got a lot better movies in here this time around. And it's completely random. I just didn't pull them out of a hat. Well, technically I did. I had a spreadsheet do it for me, but it's going to be way more competitive, a lot of fun good discussions going on there. So we hope you join us on that podcast. And of course, if you go to mymac.com, you can see some of the other shows that we have on the network, including the MyMac podcast, and the geekiest show ever is still going strong. And we do appreciate you guys listening. Send us feedback, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Bye, David.
Bye.